If I ask you what the richest country in history was, you'd probably say the British Empire, or perhaps the Roman Empire. You might even think the modern United States. But you'd be wrong. 700 years ago, in a place most history books ignore, there existed a nation so wealthy that its king once crashed the global economy just by passing through. A nation that controlled half of the world's gold supply? Welcome to the Mali Empire, the richest nation the world has ever seen, and the most mysterious. In the 14th century, the world ran on three things: salt, silk, and gold. Mali controlled all of them, while Europe was shivering through the Dark Ages, fighting the Black Plague. The Mali Empire was a superpower of trade. They held a monopoly on the three largest gold mines on Earth. At its peak, Mali was responsible for nearly 50% of the gold in circulation across Africa, Asia, and Europe. Think about that. Every gold coin in a merchant's pocket in Venice, or a king's crown in France, likely started its journey in the red soil of Mali. But how? How did a kingdom hidden behind a wall of burning sand become the central bank of the medieval world? To understand Mali's power, you have to understand the geological jackpot they sat upon. While the rest of the world was fighting over borderlines, Mali was sitting on the three largest gold fields ever discovered at that time: Bambouk, Bouré, and Galam. These weren't just mines, they were infinite fountains of wealth. But wealth on this scale attracts predators. To protect their treasure, the empire created a system so secretive, it still puzzles historians today. It was called the Silent Barter. Imagine a trade where not a single word is spoken. Traders from the north would travel for months across the dunes to reach Mali's borders. They would lay out slabs of salt, which in the desert was worth its weight in gold, and then they would retreat. From the shadows of the forbidden forests, the Mali miners would emerge. They would place piles of raw gold dust next to the salt and vanish back into the trees. If the traders liked the amount, they took it. If not, they waited. But here is the mystery. No foreigner was ever allowed to see the mines. Anyone who tried to follow a miner, anyone who tried to map the source of the gold, simply disappeared. Mali wasn't just a country, it was a ghost empire. It provided the world with its currency, but it kept its heart hidden behind a veil of absolute silence and lethal security. But wealth on this scale cannot be contained forever. It grows, it breathes, it demands to be seen. In the year 1324, the world would finally witness the true face of this golden ghost. Mansa Musa, the 10th king of kings, began a journey that remains, to this day, the most expensive trip ever taken by a human being. This wasn't just a religious pilgrimage to Mecca. It was a geopolitical demonstration of absolute dominance. Picture the horizon of the Sahara. You expect to see a small group of travelers. Instead, you see a moving city. 60,000 people stretching as far as the eye can see. 12,000 slaves, each draped in the finest Persian silks, a material more expensive than silver at the time. 500 heralds marched at the front, each carrying a staff made of solid 24-karat gold that shimmered like a second sun against the desert heat. And then, the engine of the empire, 80 camels, each groaning under the weight of 300 pounds of pure gold dust. This wasn't money in the way we think of it today. This was raw, elemental power moving across the earth. Every Friday, it was said that Musa would pay for a new mosque to be built in whatever town he happened to be standing in. He was distributing wealth so vast that the people watching him thought he was a sorcerer or perhaps a god. But there is a dark side to infinite riches, a mystery of economics that the world learned the hard way when Musa reached the gates of Cairo. Musa was so generous, handing out gold bars to the poor and spending it in the markets with such reckless abandon that he did the impossible. He broke the value of gold itself. Think about the irony. Gold is valuable because it is rare. But in the streets of Cairo, suddenly gold was as common as the dust. The market was flooded. The value of the metal plummeted. Merchants went bankrupt overnight. The Egyptian economy didn't just dip. It entered a catastrophic 12-year depression. Historians note that this is the only time in recorded human history that a single individual, by his own hand, controlled the global price of a commodity. He didn't use an army to destroy Cairo. He used his charity. He had literally turned his wealth into a weapon of mass economic destruction. But if you think Mali was only about shiny metal, you are missing the deepest mystery of all. Musa realized that gold could be stolen, but knowledge was an armor that never rusted. He returned to his empire not with more gold, but with the world's greatest minds. Architects from Spain, poets from Baghdad, mathematicians from the East. He poured his riches into a city that would become a legend, Timbuktu. While Europe was shivering in the Dark Ages, where literacy was a luxury for the few, Timbuktu became a beacon of light. It housed the University of Sankore, a massive intellectual fortress where 25,000 students studied astronomy, complex surgery, and law. In the markets of Mali, books were sold for higher prices than any slave or any bar of gold. Hundreds of thousands of manuscripts were written, covering secrets of the stars and the human body that the West wouldn't discover for another 4 centuries. These books are the hidden treasure of Mali. To this day, families in the region guard these ancient scrolls in secret desert vaults, passing them down through generations like sacred relics of a lost golden age. So, how does the richest country in history simply vanish? How does a trillion-dollar empire become a ghost story? The tragedy of Mali is the tragedy of the shifting tides. Trade routes that once relied on the desert moved to the Atlantic Ocean. The toll gate was bypassed by Portuguese ships. Internal civil wars began to tear at the throne, and the secret mines were eventually lost to time and encroaching sands. But the gold didn't disappear. It moved into the vaults of Europe. It funded the Renaissance. It built the cathedrals of Spain. Much of the wealth that modern history credits to other nations actually began its life in the red soil of the Mali Empire. We look at the desert today and see a wasteland. But if you look closer, you're standing on the ruins of a golden titan. The richest nation the world has ever seen isn't gone. It's just waiting to be remembered.